Have you ever just stopped and wondered how a single physical space can literally shape the destiny of an entire nation? It's a pretty fascinating question, right? Well, welcome to Disexplainer, where we're going to explore exactly that by looking at the legendary Sabarmati Ashram. Because you see, this wasn't just a place to live. It became the actual spiritual epicenter of a movement that completely changed the course of global history.
Okay, let's jump right in and map out our journey. We're going to cover choosing Ahmedabad, naming the movement, moving to the river, epicenter of independence, and finally, the ashram today. All right, section 1, choosing Ahmedabad, a strategic choice. So picture this. It's 1915. Mahatma Gandhi has just returned to India from South Africa, and he's immediately hit with this massive geographical dilemma. Where on earth should he settle to begin his life's work? His friends and supporters were tossing out all sorts of ideas. Some pushed for the holy city of Hardwar, others for Vaidya Nathadam, and a few strongly urged him to head to Rajkot. But Gandhi, he knew he had to make a highly intentional, strategic choice. Well, as it turns out, Ahmedabad offered 3 huge strategic advantages. Number 1, Gandhi was Gujarati, and he firmly believed he could do the most good for his country by using his native language. Number 2, Ahmedabad was this ancient center of handloom weaving, which made it the absolute perfect place to revive the cottage industry of hand spinning. And number 3, a very practical one, as the capital of Gujarat, he figured there'd be way more monetary support from wealthy citizens to actually fund his work. Now, right from the get-go, Gandhi had this one uncompromising rule. When he was hashing out funding with his Ahmedabad friends, he made it crystal clear he was going to admit an untouchable candidate to the ashram at the very first opportunity. One of his friends actually asked him, kind of complacently, "Where is the untouchable who will satisfy your condition?" But Gandhi did not budge. He absolutely refused to compromise on eradicating untouchability. And with that crystal clear, he accepted an offer from a barrister named Jivanlal Desai and officially kicked things off at Desai's Kotrab Bungal. Moving right along to section 2, naming the movement. So they've got the location secured. The next big hurdle? Figuring out what to actually call this whole mission. And it's really fascinating to see how Gandhi weighed his options here. People were throwing around names like Savashram, which means the abode of service. He kind of liked it, but felt it completely missed the focus on their specific method of service. Someone else suggested Tapovan, meaning the abode of austerities, but Gandhi shot that down for being way too pretentious. Ultimately, he landed on Satyagraha Ashram. Why? Because Satyagraha nailed both their ultimate goal, devotion to truth, and their unique method of nonviolent resistance, which he had actually first tested out over in South Africa. Of course, for the ashram to actually function, they had to draft a code of rules. During this process, Sir Guru Das Banerjee chimed in and suggested they add humility to their vows, pointing out that the younger generation sadly lacked it. Gandhi completely agreed with the observation, but he offered this incredibly profound counter-argument. He worried that humility literally stops being true humility the second it becomes a forced vow. To Gandhi, true humility was about self-effacement, which leads to moksha, or salvation. If you're genuinely seeking to serve, that humility just naturally has to be there. As he so powerfully put it, service without humility is selfishness and egotism. And so, on May 25, 1915, this massive movement officially began. But get this, it didn't start as some giant institution. It was just a humble family of exactly 25 men and women. And the diversity right from day one was incredible. The group included about 13 Tamilians, 5 of whom were kids who had literally followed him all the way from South Africa, alongside people from all over India. They really strove to live as one single family, cooking and sharing all their meals in just one common kitchen. All right, section 3, moving to the river. Let's fast forward a bit to June 1917. To actually practice the self-sufficiency they were preaching, they realized they needed a totally different kind of physical space. That original bungalow just wasn't going to cut it anymore. So Gandhi moved the ashram to the serene, quiet banks of the Sabarmati River. And this wasn't just any patch of dirt. It was deeply significant, historically known as the mythological grounds of Dadichi Rishi's ashram, a place that symbolized profound sacrifice. Having all that extra room by the river was a total game changer. It let Gandhi dramatically expand his vision. Out there, manual labor, agriculture, and education just completely blended together. They leaned heavily into farming and animal husbandry and really ramped up the khadi and hand-spinning activities to push for national self-reliance.
Interestingly, this location also became known as the Harijan Ashram, thanks to Gandhi's relentless, around-the-clock work to abolish untouchability once and for all.
Which brings us to Section 4, Epicenter of Independence. It didn't take long for this quiet little riverbank to completely transform into the living, breathing epicenter of India's fight for freedom. Just looking at the timeline, the milestones are massive. After the move in 1917, we jump into the 1920s, which is when Gandhi actually sat down right there to write his famous autobiography, immortalizing his philosophies. And then boom, March 12, 1930. The ashram serves as the launching pad for the historic Dandi March against the British salt law. It was a moment that absolutely threw gasoline on the Indian independence movement. But there's actually a pretty heartbreaking footnote to all of this. When Gandhi left the Sabarmati Ashram in 1930 for that Dandi March, he made a deeply poignant pledge. He swore he would never return to the ashram until India had finally earned its freedom. And while India did in fact gain independence in 1947, Gandhi was tragically assassinated in 1948. Because of that unfulfilled promise, he never actually set foot in his beloved ashram again. Finally, Section 5, the ashram today. Decades later, you can still walk exactly where Gandhi walked. If you're jotting this down for a future trip, getting there is super easy. Ahmedabad is highly accessible by air, train, or road. The ashram itself is open every single day from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., so it's a really seamless addition to your itinerary if you want to explore these historic grounds yourself. And once you step onto those grounds, it's literally like walking into a time capsule. You can check out Hriday Kunj, which was the incredibly simple home of Gandhi and his wife Kasturba. There's the Upasana Mandir, this beautiful open-air prayer hall. You'll see Magan Niwas, the guest house named after his close colleague. And you can even view Vinoba Kutir, the living quarters of Vinoba Bhave, who was a huge figure in India's social reform movements. Grounding this whole experience is the Gandhi Smarak Sangrahalaya. This museum, inaugurated back in 1963, does an absolutely phenomenal job of preserving his legacy. We're talking massive archives of his original writings, historical photos, personal items, and yes, the iconic spinning wheel that really became the ultimate symbol of a self-reliant society. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a second and really reflect on what we've just covered. We started with one man, looking for a place to settle, making strategic calls about language and local industry. And that one simple patch of land by a river, built on truth, nonviolence, and self-reliance, literally reshaped an entire nation. So I leave you with this final provocative thought. What legacy will our own physical spaces leave behind? How will the spaces we create today shape the movements of tomorrow? Thanks for hanging out and exploring this with me.